biggest shock of the draft is the Shedeur Sanders slide. And if you're wondering what the hell is going on screen here, you're watching this video, you're not on a live stream. I'm recording this during a live stream here. The Cavs are playing, the Browns are drafting. It's a busy day, so that's why this does not look like the way it usually does on this channel. And shout out, I got my guy Mac here, Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. The Browns have just taken ended the shock of the draft by maybe doing another shock of the draft here, right? And the super chats, we'll get to them after I record this video. They have taken Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. I love this, right? Didn't love the Dillon Gabriel pick last night, but I thought the people were overreacting to it. You know, I thought how people were reacting to it was a bit much. This right here, though, you bring in both, I'm fine with it, because I think you mentioned it when the pick came in. I would have been fine with Dillon Gabriel in the 5th, and I would have been thrilled with with Shedeur in the 3rd. So getting them in this order is a little bit out the ordinary, but man, I can't say I don't like it.
Yeah, and that's where I look at it with the perspective here, especially with quarterbacks. You know, not every quarterback is going to fit every system, but again, you have the guys that you like. And at this point, I know you mentioned this as well during the live stream, but you know, if this is what allows Shedeur to maybe be humbled a little bit, or, you know, maybe change some of the things that how he approaches certain things, especially, you know, throughout this process, there have been some things that I felt like the Shedeur camp maybe, it maybe had some missteps in the way that they attacked his pre-draft process. But at the same time, again, like for him to land in Cleveland, I think this is a wide open competition at quarterback. And I think that this is a legitimate option because look, Andrew Berry talked about, you know, the fact that, you know, the 1st round pick that they got from Jacksonville next year, it's an asset. It's something that they can utilize. And we also have constantly heard people talk about the quarterback class next year. For the Browns, this is, you have a 40-year-old Joe Flacco. You have Kenny Pickett that you traded for. You traded a 5th round pick. And you trade DTR. Like you don't have a ton of investment in any of these guys. So it basically turns into which one of you guys are going to show out, which one of you guys are going to play well. And sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. My bad.
No.
But
go ahead.
You mentioned it, and I think it's a great point. Okay, first we got to find out why he fell to the 5th, right? Like before we get excited, start doing backflips, right? We got to figure out why he fell to the 5th round. Like, is there something more serious here? Was this just some like draft day shenanigery where he didn't watch an iPad teams wanted him to watch? Or did he just not participate in the pre-draft process in the way that he needed to? They're showing the video of Shedeur jumping into the pool right now. The last guy I saw do that was Scooby Wright. But
hey, shout out
so
Scooby.
he seems excited to be a Cleveland Brown. So, you know, I think he's just excited this is over.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
I think he's just excited that he got drafted before Shiloh.
Yeah. So there's a lot here to process. Why did this happen? Why did he fall? But if it's not anything substantive and it's more about things on the edges, maybe he was a little bit of an asshole. Hey, thinking you're going to be the number 2 pick of the draft, thinking you're going to be the Browns' 1st pick of the draft.
Yeah.
And being their last pick of the draft, well, there's a whole lot of humbling that happens there.
Yeah.
Right? There's a whole lot of self-reflection that has to go on there and a whole lot of reality checking that has to go down there. Look, I think his tape is 1st round tape. I have said, I think Shedeur's a 1st round pick. I think his tape's 1st round tape. I would have been happy with either him or Milroe in the early 2nd. I'm not going to sit here and act like I am anyways not excited about getting him in the 5th round. This dude he's accurate. And the Browns have made it clear what they look for, right? They're looking for a pocket passer. They're looking for somebody who could drop back in the system and make things happen from the cover of the pocket. The Cavs are absolutely obliterating the Miami Heat still as well. But they have made it clear what they want. Shedeur, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football. He's going to get a chance to compete here, at least with Dillon Gabriel, for a roster spot. And look, the humbling is going to continue because he's no longer top pick, right? He's not going to be treated like that. He's going to be treated like 5th round pick. You know, they're going to make him pick up laundry and carry the guy's shells inside and all the stuff you make rookies do. He's going to have to battle it out with Dylan Gabriel, likely going to have to be inactive on game day, right? Unless he has an incredible preseason. So there's more humbling that's going to have to happen here. So if you're worried about that, I mean, I think the fall did a lot of the work for you. We talked about this with Baker Mayfield. Baker probably wasn't going to work in Cleveland because we took him number 1 overall and gave him the keys to the city day one. He was never going to be humbled here. We made him king, right? Yeah. He had to be let go from 2 NFL teams. And then he was humbled enough to learn the lessons he needed to learn. Maybe that's exactly what happened here with Shedeur Sanders, and you get the best case scenario. I tend to think that if he can recover from the humiliation that was this weekend for him, which, like, no doubt about it, the kid got humiliated, right?
I mean, he went viral for the prank call.
Yeah, like somebody prank called him. Like the kid got humiliated, and it was disgusting, right? Yeah. If he can recover from that, I think there's a chance that people might have built the monster up. And I mean, like, look, this is the Cleveland Browns story right here, right? For everybody who shout out to my guy Nick Carnes on Twitter, right? This is what poems are made of, right? Like this is the kind of shit that we love here in Cleveland, right? This guy was overlooked, thrown away, chewed aside in the 5th round. People doubted him despite putting up good numbers in college, and now he gets a chance to prove it. He's an underdog now. Right? So, he wouldn't have been an underdog at 2, and I worry about if that would have fit with Cleveland, but an underdog now, 5th round pick. He understands there's stuff he cannot get away with, and if he doesn't, he won't be on the team long. There's a lot to go through with this pick, but hey, I love it. I love what the Browns did in this draft, too. Like, I think it's a really good draft. Like, and we got to start, like, I didn't like the 21 draft. I didn't like the 22 draft. Those 2 drafts, if you look at approximate value, have not been great for Andrew Berry. And I think that makes up the bulk of what people think about Andrew Berry's drafting plus Jed Wills, right? Mm-hmm. Which we don't have to get too deep into. But those 3 years.
He doesn't dig deep into the tape anyway, so that's fine.
Yes. Those are the things that people have gotten on Andrew Berry. But I think the 23 draft, really solid. Mm-hmm. 24 draft, really solid. Now, again, how I feel about the draft today is not important. How I feel about it 2 years from now is. But I love what they did here today.
Yeah.
I love what they've done. Even Dylan Sampson, not in love with him, would have liked DJ Gittins over him. But hey, if your running back coach sees something in him, let's see if it works out. He's not a terrible pick in the 4th round. I love what they've done here. They've taken a legitimate shot at quarterback with Shedeur. Who knows? Dylan Gabriel might be a legitimate shot there. Another thing Shedeur's going to have to overcome, he's not the coach's choice at quarterback. He's been the coach's choice at quarterback his whole life. He's not the coach's choice at quarterback. If Shedeur is built for this, we're going to find out. And if he is, hey, man, you might have got a starter in the 5th round. We finally might be the fucking team that gets a starter in the 5th round. Like, it might finally happen here. Because we got to see if he's built for this. This is a lot for him to learn, and it might take more than a year.
Well, and let's be so honest, too. If there's one team that's going to find a starter in the 5th round, it's going to be this one. Because we've screwed up every other potential draft pick that you could potentially have. And what's even funnier, too, to me, too, and this just dawned on me, is that they took DTR at pick 140, and they got Shedeur at 144. But, like, the way, and you said it perfectly, too, and I know we talked about it earlier, but I outside of the Dylan Gabriel pick, and it was mainly just where they selected him, I love what the Browns have done. And again, if you just swap where those guys are taken, this is perfectly fine. Like, this is just, cherry on top for this whole weekend. And again, and you brought up a great point too, where Baker was never going to be humbled here because it was always the number 1 pick billing. You had all of that built up. You had the organization fully bought in, everything like that. Number 1 overall pick. And again, the guy still needed to be humbled in order to get to where he's at today. Shedeur having all of this going into the league, and especially like you said, having that pressure as well of, hey, if it doesn't work out this year, we're probably taking a quarterback next year. Like, so you have to perform now, and you have to go ahead and show what you can do now. And again, like you said, this is the kind of situation that it's sports has some some wild ways of telling stories, man. And if somehow the guy that the Browns are able that it turns into something where he can potentially be that guy, and that
Mm-hmm.
potentially being the Browns' fifth rounder that also was projected to go to them at 2 and ends up turning into that guy. I mean, it's poetic. And also, one last thing that I'll throw out there too, he can potentially finally fix the quarterback wearing number 2 for Cleveland,
Yeah. Well, I
unlike
mean, we'll
Johnny.
see what number he gets, right? Because Dylan still has to pick his number. I don't know if 8's available. He's going to have picking order over the Cleveland Browns. Yeah. Look, the Cleveland Browns are taking shots here at the quarterback room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Pickett trade. Let's take a shot at the former first-round pick, right? Joe Flacco, he was good for us a couple of years ago. He's 40, though. Let's take a shot with Joe Flacco, right? Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel. Kevin feels strongly about Dylan, right?
Yeah.
You know, maybe Kevin likes Shedeur too. Maybe he just didn't love some of the personality stuff that he got from him. But he's like, hey, man, 5th round, let's see if the kid got humbled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's stop this here, you know? And I want to discount this. And I beg Browns fans who are worried about the personality stuff to think about this. If I were falling from 2 to 156, I'm going to be so grateful for whatever team takes me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because once he fell past the 4th round, the real fear of like, hey man, he might fall out the draft entirely.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if we get Will Howard UDFA,
everybody's happy.
6 guys there, right? But once that happened and it got real, like, hey man, I might fall all the way to 200.
Yeah.
Whatever team, like he jumps in the pool after he gets drafted. Hey, you might find somebody who's ready to turn over a new leaf. And look, the thing with Shedeur is that it's not like this dude has the traditional problems that you're worried about with like apparently it's just interviews went wrong with him, right? Like he didn't interview well, but it's not like he got caught with the gun. It's not like
it's
he's
not
in legal trouble or has accusations on him, right? It's not like he's like at the club during the draft. It's none of those things. Like everything that I've heard is this dude works hard, right? It's just concern about him being in that Sanders family apparatus. And if that's really the reason he fell, and you know, I think there's reason to think to be open to the idea that there's more than just that. Because again, this is a far drop for him. Yeah. Right. So it might be more serious, right? Maybe there's a medical or something, like something popped up. Might be a chance there. But if it were something along those lines, I feel like we would have known about it before the draft, right? But anyways, so much here to think about. But Shedeur Sanders getting taken here. Look, even if you're not a fan of him, even if you're like me, you didn't want to take him at 2. I mean, giving him a shot to make the team here in the 5th round. I mean, how can I be mad at that? I mean, look at the talent that the Browns have added to this team in this draft. You get Mason Graham, who is a stuffer at the defensive tackle position, one of the special prospects to come out at that defensive tackle position. Pass rusher, run stuffer, he got them both. Those guys are rare, right? I know people are like, defensive tackle, there's no value there. Hey, dudes who could do what Mason Graham does and change the game like him, those guys are rare and they get paid big money, right? How many times we talk about we should trade for Jonathan Allen? We should trade for this guy, right? That guy, Christian Wilkins. Well, this is a guy who compares favorably, maybe even better than Christian Wilkins, you know? Moves better than Christian Wilkins does. So you get that guy, and you get a future first with your 2 second-round picks. You get Schlesinger, who everybody who's watched him seems to love him. And then Quincy Junkins, who I love him, right? Kareem Hunt clone to me. And then you get Harold Fainer Jr., and then you throw the quarterback competition, and you get Dylan Gabriel versus Shedeur Sanders. Quarterback competition. Okay, sign me up, man. Sign me up. I don't know what this year's going to be, but hey, best case scenario, you get a guy in Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders shows themselves to be the franchise, to be a starting caliber quarterback in the league, and you're happy. Worst case scenario, everybody sucks. You got an extra first next year, and your pick's going to be really good. And you're going to be able to find that quarterback in 2026, hopefully, or be able to use that pick to trade for an established starter.
Yeah.
This is not the world I think a lot of people wanted to live in when we traded for Deshaun, right? Some of us would rather live in the world where Deshaun is the franchise guy or Baker's still here. But if you're going to pivot out, this is a strong pivot out. There's no doubt about it. Getting Shedeur Sanders and everybody else that we mentioned, that would have been graded really well 3 days ago. Like, just think about this, Mac. If somebody said, hey, I got this mock draft, Mac. What do you think of this? Right? And it's Shedeur going in the 5th. You would have signed that man up for an insane asylum. Because what do you just dream up the perfect draft for the Browns? Like, get out of here. We're not getting Shedeur in the 5th.
I would have told him to use a different website. Like, I don't know which one you're using, but that algorithm.
There's no mock draft website that would have let this happen. Right? Like, this was an impossible scenario to come up. Mm-hmm. So, if you felt that strongly about it 2 days ago.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Like, I'm going to sit here and be upset at it today? No, man. Look, Andrew Berry's back's been against the wall this whole offseason. And so far, I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
As far as the response this offseason. I love getting Miles under contract. I think the moves he made on the offensive line were sneaky good. Mm-hmm. I love this draft. And we'll see. Again, loving the draft day one means nothing. I understand that. I fathered the phrase, okay? but I like it. I hope it's going to be as good as it looks right now in a couple of years. And, I don't think you risked anything with the 2 swings that you took at quarterback late here.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And I think one thing, too, and you mentioned it, too, with Mason Graham, but I feel like an underrated spot that kind of got lost in the shuffle, too, is the fact that you lost somebody like Dalvin Tomlinson, too, on that defensive line. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that also I think you can call this draft is basically culture setters. Dylan Gabriel, for as much as, we clown about it, or we've seen people clown on it last night, especially. But the one thing is like listening to that dude talk in his press conference, listening to him, talk with the guys on Browns Radio Network, but listening to the way that he speaks to these guys, especially, and you can tell that dude leadership, comes through when it comes to the way that he speaks and carries himself. And again, what's the one thing that we constantly heard about Shedeur, especially around his teammates, is that, teammates buy into him, teammates love him. And so, between those guys, Carson Schwessinger, UCLA guy, also Jason Tarver, linebacker coach, also from UCLA.
I trust Jason Tarver implicitly.
Right. And that's the thing is like, in watching the draft call, him coming in and saying like, we want to have you lead. We want to have you be that guy for us in the middle. Like all of these guys are all good dudes and also good leaders. And it's why like Harold Fain Jr. love that dude. And especially like for what he does at 20, and also the fact that he's stuck at BG despite having very good offers to go elsewhere, like tells me a lot, especially in today's NIL. So I love this draft in particular as just a culture setting draft for this team. Like, especially after, the Deshaun Watson era and, time after time having those issues pop up. And even a couple years ago with like the Jadeveon Clowney basically having a temper tantrum in week 17, like constantly having some of those issues. I feel like this is Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. And I know that Jimmy Haslam even said like owned up to that Watson deal. But I look at this as basically being, hey, this is us pressing that cultural reset button. This is us getting our cultural foundation and moving on. If we have the quarterback in one of these guys, we feel like, I think culturally, whichever one wins out, you're going to have a good leader, at least in that locker room. And I think that team's desperately needed it. Because for as much as, Jameis would have his pregame sermons, we'll see. I think that was a little bit of okay. But at the same time, looking at how this team goes forward now, especially with Flacco back in the building, Kenny Pickett being humbled, going from Pittsburgh to Philly being a backup. Like this entire team, I think is getting a cultural reset. And I think this will be looked at as a foundational draft for these guys for years to come, basically.
I hope it is. And we got the future first next year. right?
Yeah.
Like this is the draft it wasn't about. So we'll see what happens there. But that's my thoughts on that's our thoughts on the Sanders.